Hey there, welcome back to Zesty's Corner. Today we'll be chatting about the Surface Duo 2, and I'll be giving my thoughts on it after having it for 1 week. Before getting into it, I'd like to say that the phones I've had in the past were the OnePlus 7 Pro, Pixel 1, Nexus 6P, and the Nexus 5. So I try my best to stay close to vanilla Android, with this phone being the biggest change-up. Jumping right in, the first noticeable thing is the form factor of the device. I'm not sure what each screen's aspect ratio is, but it seems something about 3 to 2, or something like 2.75 to 2. This makes it so some apps scale weirdly on it, never in a bad way, just different from what I'm used to. Each screen is about 5 inches, and using both screens as one big screen, it's closer to about 8 inches. When spanning apps, some of them support splitting across the two screens like all of the Microsoft apps, and using Outlook as an example, it allows for you to compose a message on one screen, and then on the other screen it has your inbox. Looking at some of the non-Microsoft apps that come pre-installed on the phone, we have TikTok, Asphalt 9, Kindle, and one other app, but I honestly don't remember it. Either way, these apps support spanning so that both screens are being used. In TikTok, it has the search feature on one screen, or the video creator's profile, and the other screen is the video itself, which seems very limited. But for Asphalt 9, it feels more like a Nintendo DS, since you can hold the game in landscape mode, have the course map on the bottom screen, and the top screen is a normal car view. Other than those apps, I haven't come across an app that supported spanning properly, which could be fine if you know what you're getting into, like watching a YouTube video might not be the best, because there'll be an awkward line through the middle of the screen. But for digesting text via Twitter, having a landscape mode is a nice pseudo-tablet experience. This phone excels at multitasking. I love being able to be on a video call, and also be able to take notes or do something else. And sure, that might be a businessy example, but you can also just swap out those apps, so you can watch YouTube on one screen, and the other be browsing Twitter. Here's an interesting tidbit. For some reason, the Amazon Shopping app is not supported on this device, and I'm not sure why that is, because I sideloaded it and it works quite alright. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, the phone has pretty decent battery life. I've had the phone on for about a week now, and AccuBattery says I'm getting about 5.5 hours of on-screen battery life, which I think is pretty good, especially because I'm mostly using this phone in book mode. The fingerprint sensor is very responsive, and it's easy to just kind of throw my thumb on it and be right 99% of the time, which is something I can't say about using other fingerprint sensors, either being a hassle to reach it, or the sensor just isn't responsive enough. Probably helps that the Duo 2 sensor is on the lock button, which is a very comfortable spot for my thumb to just naturally rest on the device. Speaking about holding onto the device, it is pretty heavy, coming in at about 284 grams, with my heaviest phone before this being the OnePlus 7 Pro at 206 grams, and you can really feel the weight when you're holding it in one hand in phone mode. When switching to phone mode, the device will assume you want to use the right screen, but you can double tap the left screen to use it instead. For me, with how I naturally hold the phone, I normally constantly double tap the left screen, and honestly, I find it easier and more comfortable to hold it in this orientation anyway. Other than phone mode, the two-screen mode is book mode, which the phone is also able to stand on its own, which could be useful. The few cases I've used it that way is for video calls, and the other way it can fold is like a tent, which turns off one screen but keeps the other screen on, which I use for consuming media while getting ready in the morning. The only problem is that the volume rockers and lock button are against the ground, requiring the phone to be picked up to have access to those buttons. I'm normally pretty picky with my launchers. On my phone, since I want the Nexus experience, I want my Google cards on my far left, and my home screen being very minimalistic, so when I moved to OnePlus, I was quick to go back to the Nova launcher and get my Google cards working again. Well, small problem with the Duo 2, most launchers do not work with the two-screen device, so I'm very amazed by how good the Microsoft launcher, or whatever it's called, is. Sure, there are no Google cards to the far left, but there's a Microsoft version, which is fine, and I can set up my home screen to be very close to how I want it. The only part that's lacking here is all the customization that I'm used to. But honestly, out of the box, this is 90% of what I wanted, which is something I can't say of the OnePlus. Speaking of the OnePlus, that phone has curved screens, so when I heard the Surface Duo would have curved screens, I wasn't really happy to hear it. But honestly, it's not something I think about because of how great it works right out of the box. I don't need to worry about accidentally hitting the curvature and messing up what I'm looking at. What is an issue? I'm not sure if that's the right word, but I normally use the 3-button navigation. All gestures and everything never felt all that great, but I do like this one, and that's not the problem. What is how swiping feels very deliberate, but it also feels very inconsistent, and I'm not sure if there's a learning curve because of how it is. But yeah, when you do it, it feels great. But if it doesn't work, it just feels bad. The phone launched with Android 11, which is an OS I did not like only because the OnePlus version just caused me a lot of issues, mainly with how I wanted my display to be set to small, and my font set to small as well. It just wasn't the same on that phone, but once again, there are issues with this phone. Although, not being on Android 12 feels kinda bad, but honestly, Microsoft just needs to jump from 11 to 12L, since that version is supposed to be for foldable designed phones anyway. One thing that does feel good though is the typing. The haptic feedback and everything is just beautiful together. No other words for it. Lastly, while I'm still comparing these two, Bluetooth range seems pretty weak on the Duo 2, making it so I can go about 10 to 15 feet away from my phone before the sound quality drops, whereas on my OnePlus, I can go almost my entire apartment before I hear the quality start to go down. As for footage, counting going through walls, it's probably around 40-ish feet. I know that last bit. I compared this device against my old OnePlus, but that's where I'm coming from. I have used a full 3 for a bit, like 10 minutes, but something about it I didn't like, and I'm not sure what. Which is funny because I've been dreaming about a foldable phone ever since Samsung spoke about working on the tech back when I had a Galaxy Note 1. Anyway, this is probably just going to be the cons or things I've noticed in general. There are a few things that are learning curves because you'll be probably using Microsoft's version. Looking at you, keyboard. I've been using the Gboard keyboard since they launched it, so I have muscle memory for where things are at or how to do things with it. But the default keyboard you're given is different enough to make typing mildly annoying. Well, when typing this script, I did it on the Duo 2 to see how bad it would be. And were there issues? Yes. But it honestly wasn't bad. I just need to type a bit slower to make sure that I'm hitting the keys. If you see my unboxing shorts, the unboxing experience is very lackluster. What comes in the box is the phone, a SIM card remover, and a Type-C to Type-A USB cable. Which, I mean, sure is fine. But the 3 chargers I have at my house are 30 watts, 15 watts, and 5 watts. The Surface Duo 2 seems to charge at 5 watts at best, and at worst something below that. I don't know what charging very slowly means. I know the phone supports 23 watt charging. I just need to buy a charger for that, which feels bad. And this is the first phone I bought that didn't come with the charger. So yeah, I'm gonna complain about it. I also bought the Surface Pen Slim, but that also doesn't come with a charger, and it requires to be charged for 1 second to turn on for the first time. I'm sorry for thinking that a $130 device would come with a charger, since the only way you could have had a charger is if you had the generation before. And that one only works if you update it via Surface Windows device. Yes, you heard that right. The charger can only be upgraded to work with the new pen if you have a Surface device that runs Windows. I don't know how many people that would be, but I bought this to use with the Duo 2 because of all the marketing behind it, and I didn't realize that the phone couldn't charge it out of the box, but that it needed a case, so that's pretty lame. So now I have a nice paperweight until I decide what to do with it, especially because I bought the $40 bumper case. They'd be closer to like the Nexus bumper case, but it's just this thin piece that's stuck around the phone using adhesive, which if it doesn't feel $40 worth, maybe like 10. Speaking about accessories, most of the ones you have for your normal/regular phone won't fit with this one because of the size issue. All the accessories to hold the phone, like the one I use in the car, won't be able to hold the phone, and even the Razer Kishki that I have. The glance bar is supposed to make it easier to know what notifications you've received, but it's very limited with what it can show. The only use case I've gotten out of it is for incoming calls and text messages. For my emails via Gmail, or other messages I've received that aren't covered there, and that's why it's almost required to have a smartwatch, so you can see what notifications you have. Especially because to open the phone, you'll need 2 hands. I have successfully opened this phone with 1 hand, but I almost dropped it, so I don't recommend it. This makes it more obvious for how much of a money drop this phone is if you aren't coming from the original Duo. I've gotten better at learning all the nuances with this phone, and I'm happy with it. I know with all the bad things I've said and all the issues I've encountered, but this is probably the most hyped I've been for a phone since the Nexus 6P, which means something if you know me, because I was hyped as they come. If you're not interested in the Duo to begin with, I'm not expecting this 1 week later review to change your mind. I just wanted to give my thoughts and feelings to those who are interested but don't want to try something that has such a huge cost associated with it. I'm interested in where Microsoft takes the Duo. Will it always be an Android phone, or will it move over to Windows once all the Android app integration and Windows ARM are squared away? Anyway, that's it for this week's episode. Let me know what your thoughts are on foldables or any phones in general. Thanks for stopping by Zesty's Corner.